point. And just like that, we're already 2 minutes into the show. Like, all right, yes, it is Thursday. It's 9, so of course it's UK Cowboys time. How are we doing? Scotland 1 and Scotland 2.
Oh my God, mate.
Yeah, and obviously as well, we got to say hello to all the MVPs, our Ukis, the hardcore listeners of this show. Get your comments in, as we say every week. Otherwise, it's just us lot nattering between ourselves. But this week, we do have a special guest with us. We have the great and the powerful Brianna Dex. How are we doing?
I am doing great, guys. How are you?
Not bad.
Yeah, I think this week the craziness at the beginning of the week certainly peaked our juices again as well, So
yeah, it certainly made Tuesday an interesting show. We had to completely flip the script on Tuesday's show. But yes, we got Brianna with us. If you don't know, she works with the Dallas Cowboys, but also, and here's an interesting one, and I'll tell you why. You also do work with Sooners Wire as well, writing for them. Just so you know, Longhorns fan.
Oh, okay.
I'm not, so don't worry.
He's an Aggie.
Well, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
the better Texas team.
Here's the thing about me. Like, I've kind of sworn to say, yeah, I'll just support Longhorns, but I don't necessarily have a pure concrete college team to support. I'm just Dallas Cowboys through and through. That's it.
I like it because since you became a fan of the Longhorns, they haven't played very well. So just continue supporting them.
It's all your fault. But no, that's me. I mean, growing up, I was always like an NFL enthusiast. Like that was part of my fabric. I didn't go to like a big like Division I college school. Like football wasn't a huge deal, so I was always basically NFL through and through.
There we go. Yeah, I like it. I like top flight. But also, you do your own show and content as well. We were just talking because you've done a lot of work with Brian Broadus. But
yes.
What is that show? Where can they find it? And names and acts and all the rest of it?
Yes. So during the season, me and Brian Broadus started a Blitz crosstalk where we would go through the games, kind of a preview of each week, kind of a breakdown of what each game was. We'll probably be doing some draft stuff as the offseason progresses, but that's on my YouTube channel, Brianna Dix, and then all of my articles, videos are on d210.tv. So as well as my social media on Twitter and Instagram.
Yes, there we go. We did take a perusal at it all and gone through to see what's been going on. You got to be nosy, and that's what we like.
Yeah.
We can't help being nosy. We've got to poke our business into everything.
A little bit of creepiness.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, it's Dallas Cowboys creepiness. It's Dallas Cowboys creepiness, so that's allowed. But yeah, it's another draft show. Yeah, it's season 3, episode 49, 179. We are going to go through though with some of the news since we've got Brianna with us. Some of the stuff we spoke about Tuesday, we'll talk again just to get your side of the story, if you like. But we've got some more news, and then we'll try and roll into some draft talk. Whether that happens, I don't know. You know how these things go.
It'll be what it'll be.
I mean, the way that some of these conversations go, we start over here and end up like 10 miles over there with where it was supposed to go, but never mind. That's how it is sometimes. But yeah, we see your comments coming in from the great Ukis, the fans out there. Keep them coming in. We'll fly them up. And if you've got questions for Brianna, make sure to bring them in as well. But we'll start you off with the first question. And we posted a little article up today to help ease people's minds about the Dalton Schultz franchise tag. How do you see it? What's your take on it?
So my take was that the Cowboys, their hand was forced a little bit. I think, Blake Jarwin, his injury, there's a lot of uncertainty. And I mean, with this hip thing, I mean, this is something potentially that could keep him out, I even think, all season next year. So, I mean, this is a big deal. And then you think behind Blake Jarwin, you have Sean McEwen and Ian Bunting. So, I mean, super thin. So at that point, and I mean, Dalton Schultz, he's a Dak-friendly guy, it's kind of his safety net. And sure, he's not the best blocker. He's not that deep threat. He's not on the elite class of a Kelsey, a Kittle, a Waller. But I think, Dak Prescott probably did have some say in this. And I mean, just to try and help solidify that group. And the Cowboys are trying to get, that long-term deal done. So, I mean, I don't think it'll be that $11 million against the cap in 2022. That's still in the process. Yeah. But the question that I'm asking myself is, can Dalton Schultz be that guy? if you have wide receivers commanding a double team, so say you have Amari Cooper that's gone, if it's CeeDee Lamb, can he step up and be that guy? And I think a lot of his production in 2021 was based on the way that teams were playing the Cowboys, right? They were using that too high shell. So you had opportunities created for Cedric Wilson in the slot. You had stuff that opened up for Dalton Schultz, over the middle on those underneath intermediate routes, boxing out defenders. So that's kind of some things that I'm going through. But I mean, with what the depth was, I mean, you had to bring a guy like that back. And I think, it's harder in the draft to get a good serviceable tight end that can come in and make an immediate impact unless it's a guy that's in, the top 10.
Yeah.
So your hand was forced, with Blake Jarwin's injury status being what it was.
Yeah. I think also the fact that, there were 3 other tight ends that were franchised this year as well. I mean, that was taking away some of the top end of the market. So
right.
You'd be seeing something, Paul. I know you love talking about Kenny Golladay and the sort of money he garnered last year. You'd be getting the equivalent for a tight end this year. You'd be paying over the odds in free agency. So I think it's on the one hand, it looks bad that we're paying almost 11 million to him if we don't get a long-term deal done. But what would it be if you were, as you say, going in with McKeon and Bunting, and you wanted to try and pick somebody up in the free agency? The bidding war would be incredible at the moment, I think. So,
yeah, I mean, I agree in some parts. I mean, the article we wrote today on Dalton Schultz on trying to help ease people's minds on this 10.9 million that's going to hit. I mean, like you said, they are going to try, because just because they franchise tagged him and that's what the tag is, doesn't necessarily mean that's what it'll be. Because they've got time.
Right. I mean, they have until July 15th to get that long-term deal done. So
exactly.
Didn't we not do that way? DeMarcus Lawrence had him on the franchise tag, then all of a sudden we got him signed up to the long-term deal. I mean, that's essentially what we did.
Right. Yeah. And just to go through his pass blocking stats, because that was one of the things we dove into, was it more specifically in terms of his pass blocking. His run blocking isn't too bad either, but this is a minimum in the league of 60 pass block snaps. So it's easy enough. You get a good enough list. In terms of that, he ranks first in sacks allowed, 0. In pressures allowed is 2. And 8.6% of his snaps pressured allowed. That's first in the NFL. So, the narrative is there. I think with it as well, with Dalton Schultz, is consistency. And especially at tight end, the tight end position is trying to find consistency. And that's what Dalton Schultz provides you. The question I asked these lot, and I'll ask you, Brianna, is Dalton Schultz, though, is he a good serviceable tight end, or is he a product of the offense?
I think he's a serviceable tight end. I mean, he's certainly a guy. I mean, Dak had more trust in him and Cedric Wilson than he did in CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, who were your bona fide number 1 and number 2. I mean, Dalton Schultz was constantly a go-to target for Dak in multiple situations. And granted, I think a lot of that was, again, the way that teams were playing the Cowboys. But I mean, he was probably the most consistent guy you had on the offense over and over. And I mean, if you look at like his catches compared to the targets, I mean, he was clearly the front runner in that category for the Cowboys. So, I mean, I'm certainly not surprised that he was one of the guys that they retained, just given his production, the rapport that Dak has with him. I mean, being a Dak-friendly guy, that I feel like this was something that was going to happen, especially with the situation that unfolded with Blake Jarwin.
Yeah. I think that was the biggest thing that kind of forced them to this, was the Blake Jarwin situation. But another bit of news that broke today is the Cowboys have turned around and they've said that they're not looking at punter Brian Anger, 3rd round pick Brian Anger, back next season. Now, Fassel was seen, and Paul pointing this out, was seen at the combine during the punter drills, if you like, that was going on. So do you think perhaps they're going to go day 3? Is that going to be a pick, or do you think because the kicker's still a situation, something that's being spoke about as well, but I don't see them going both punter and kicker in the draft unless it's undrafted. But do you think this now opens up the door in the third round, day 3, for a draft pick with punter?
No, I think absolutely. And I was honestly surprised by the Brian Anger news. I mean, this was a guy that was, all pro bowl. I mean, God, I think he averaged like 44 yards like per punt average. I mean, just crazy. And to be honest, like a lot of the time last season when you would go through like game after game and you'd pick like your MVP, I mean, the punter a lot of times be like Micah Parsons, Brian Anger. I mean, he had an incredible season. So, I mean, I know that you have to get under that salary cap limit, but I mean, he was a guy that I was surprised that they decided to part ways from. But I think certainly you're going to have to solidify that, special teams as well. And I know that's kind of a category that often gets overlooked. But yeah, I mean, they're certainly going to have to dig deep and get something in the draft.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, they're covered. At the moment, they're covered for punter because they do have Hunter Niswander still on the roster from last year.
Yeah.
And he the year before we brought Anger in, he was still serviceable. I think when we compared the stats going into training camp last year, I think both were at about a 44-yard average. So that was you could have gone the cheaper route and actually stuck with Hunter Niswander if he hadn't got injured in training camp.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, as soon as Anger got the second team All Pro selection this year, I mean that was just going to cost him out of it. You got Johnny Hecker, I think, is the highest paid punter in the league, and that's $2 million a year. If you're paying him $2 million a year, and you're paying almost $2.5 million to Zerline as well. That's crazy money to be paying to your special teams, and you got to think that we've got to bring back McQuaid as well. So, potentially you'd be talking about almost 6 or 7 million for, guys that are only on as and when you're kicking field goals or extra points. So
funny that you mentioned Zerline. I've actually got a question on the comments here, and this is for you, Brianna. What is your view on Zerline returning?
I know that he is a Bones Fossil guy. He loves him. But I mean, at some point, it's like the production has to outweigh your love for him. Like we all know that how much you've enjoyed him and the Greg the Leg. But I mean, when you're missing as many kicks as he did, he's not a guy that you can rely on in big time situations. And I mean, you saw in the playoffs how many games were decided by a game-winning field goal. I mean, you have to be able to make those, and he's not a guy that they can rely on to do that. Even in practice, watching him, I mean, he would repeatedly miss. Yeah. And it's like at some point you're going to have to move on and make that decision because he's not a guy that you can rely on to make those kicks. And at this point in time in the NFL, you can't count on a guy like that. So, no, I would say they do need to move on from Greg Zuerlein.
Yeah, we have plenty of offers on Twitter, by the way. There's a few with the Ukis saying that they'll take a punting job in Dallas. Thank you very much, guys.
Put me in, coach.
I was just going to add on top of that. It's like you could always argue with the financial aspect of it. It's like Greg's on quite a chunky contract for a kicker as well.
Yeah,
so
and he certainly is not warranting that.
No, he's not. Yeah. Especially when you see some of the kickers that are just rookies and they're absolutely balling it out there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So we don't need to name names on that one.
Mm-hmm. But I definitely think rather than just looking at what our normal draft scouting, it's like I think we actually do a due diligence of what punters and kickers we actually might want to look at now.
I already have a list.
I figured that.
Yeah.
I want us to sign Dicker so that we've got Dicker the kicker and Hunter the punter. So,
oh my.
Funnily enough, I was looking at Cameron Dicker yesterday, watching the kicks there. But here's one for you. It's come up as a question as well, and I was thinking it, so it's kind of ironic. But how come, or what do you guys think are the reasons that they've asked Demarcus Lawrence, Tank, to take a pay cut? He said no. They're saying that they're going to cut Amari Cooper. Another cap casualty, but why is it that they haven't asked Zeke to take a pay cut? I
find it's just a mistake on Stephen Jones's half. He's actually put himself like I don't think he actually meant to say what he meant to say. Like I don't know. I'm not trying to defend him, but I think the way how the conversation kind of transpired is like, yeah, 6'8" guy, he's trying to ease the tension. I don't know, but I think it's not going to send the right message out to the rest of the squad. It's like, wait, hold on a minute. Why is he untouchable and I am? Like, so if I was other than Seat, I'd be quite annoyed about that comment from Stephen. But I don't think Stephen realised in the position what he's done it's uneased quite a lot of people within the team, I think.
Yeah. And I think with Zeke too, I think they made the mistake in the way that they structured his contract, because you can't really restructure it now because it's going to kill you in the future. So that was the way that they structured his deal, and that's the issue. And yes, they asked DeMarcus Lawrence to take the pay cut. He said no, so the likelihood that he's going to be back is basically like they don't come back after you find a pay cut. But I think it's a situation now where, okay, you're going to move on from DeMarcus Lawrence, you're going to re-sign Randy Gregory, you're going to move on from Amari Cooper, and you're going to sign Michael Gallup. Now, do I think the team's going to be better doing that? No. But I mean, that's just the way the NFL is, and you know, that's just kind of the way that in the salary cap age, that's what you get. But yeah, bad on their part in the way that they structured Zeke's deal.
Yeah, I mean, with this news about like Cooper and D-Law, it's like the only thing I can keep thinking of is like, it just changes our priorities now when it comes to the draft. Do we now have to draft a wide receiver at 24 or
again
higher
in the
up?
first round?
Again in the first round, do we have to draft a defensive lineman at 24? Like, this is something that we could have easily done in like day 2 and day 3, but now it could be a day 1 scenario now where our number one problem, what we were all talking about, was offensive line. Especially now, the news is that Lyle Collins is potentially getting traded away again. Now there's the whole, okay, we might need a tackle now, so we're like, it seems to be growing arms and legs now, and it's only been 2 weeks of sheer carnage of news right now.
That's not even 2 weeks. Like, the carnage started really Monday. But it is a crazy one when you try and figure it out. And there are reports as well that the Patriots have come online and said, look, we're interested in Amari Cooper.
Yeah, I think you couldn't actually restructure, other than restructuring Zeke's deal the same way that you would Dak Prescott and extending it past the length of the contract into voidable years. Both Tank and Amari Cooper, they've got no guaranteed money this year other than their signing bonuses. So that is obviously, you can go to them and say, look, this 17 million that you're getting for playing 17 games, you're getting that as a $1 million paycheck or whatever. We want you to take half of that or whatever, and say you save money there. But when the contract's written that everything's fully guaranteed, there's no way of actually, short of actually doing what Dak and Zach did and expanding it out further into the contract. There's nothing that you can actually do to ask them to take a pay cut when it's guaranteed money.
Yeah, right. Well, the thing with like Amari too is like, I'm sick and tired of hearing like, oh, the production didn't match him getting 20 million. Okay, well, Mike Williams just got a $60 million 3-year contract, 28 million guaranteed in year 1, and Amari Cooper is a much better receiver. I mean, this is a guy that for the second time in his career this past season didn't get 1,000 yards, and the other time was when he was with the Raiders. Like, no, this is because the Cowboys didn't utilize him in the right way, and that's on Kellen Moore to fix that. I mean, Amari Cooper, in my mind, is a top 10, 12 wide receiver in the league.
Easily.
He still has a lot in the tank. This is an issue of how the Cowboys utilize him. And of course, like, Amari disclosed his frustrations on the amount of targets he got. Conversely, Jones talked about his frustrations with Amari Cooper's vaccination status. You know, the check.
That comes in.
You know, and of course, I'm sure all of that comes into play. But I'm just like, I mean, Amari is a phenomenal receiver, and so moving on from him, I do not think this team is going to be better. I don't think they should have cut him. I think they should have tried to rework his deal, restructure it to more money into the future. But I mean, I understand you have to do something to get under the cap limit. But I think at this point, the Cowboys are just going to try and reinvent this wide receiver position with CeeDee Lamb as your number one, with Michael Gallup, with a second or third round draft pick. Because I mean, there are a ton of freaks in the draft, in the top 100 come in, make an impact. But at the same time, like, I mean, Michael Gallup could start the year on PUP next year.
Yeah.
So then what? You've got CeeDee Lamb, you've got a rookie, you've got Simi Fayoko, and you're going to tell me that that's going to be better than having Amari Cooper? No, you can't tell me
that. We got a question a minute, Paul, on Twitter, where they're asking at 24, what would your choice be? Olave, Chris Olave, or Burks? I say Olave because he's a safer choice. He's just safer. The floor and the ceiling are very, very close together.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think the ceiling's higher.
Yeah, and it's just a safer choice. In fact, I would say Olave is probably the safest, one of the safest prospects in this year's draft.
Yeah,
but sorry, just had to chuck that in because they were eager for me to ask you.
Mike, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say none of them because I still think our bigger priority is what's the point? It's no point in drafting a wide receiver if we're not going to give Dak enough time to give it protection to throw the ball. So that's my point of view on it.
Well, I know, and there's obviously
certainly need to go offensive line in the first round for sure.
But here we go. If we start going down that, we can really hit problems because we can say, well, what about the safety positions? We've only got one safety. What about linebacker? Because at the moment we've only got one linebacker, and he's not really a starter because Micah Parsons is going to have to take Randy Gregory's spot or DeMarcus Lawrence if they're both going. So there's your defensive end. So now what are you doing at linebacker?
Right. Well,
I am so glad I'm not in the task.
What the coaches have said about Micah Parsons, I think that potentially you can have him lining up as an edge more often, but I don't think they're ever going to make Micah Parsons a full-time
permanent
defensive end.
I'm with you.
Despite what happens to Randy Gregory, DeMarcus Lawrence, I mean, they've talked about over and over his ability to constantly keep offensive coordinators guessing. You have no idea where he's coming from, whether it's left end, right end, over the center, off the ball. I mean, he's an absolute menace. And I think that's one of the things that makes him so lethal in the Cowboys defense, and the way that Dan Quinn utilizes him in pass rush packages. I mean, blitzes, stunts. Like, I mean, this guy just is all over the place, and that's what makes him such a great player. And if you put him just at the end, he's going to get the sack production, or if he's just a linebacker, he's going to get the tackle production. But all of those things combined is what makes him such a great player. And no matter what was put on his workload, he did it to the full extent of his ability. So I think that they're going to continue to do that for years to come with him.
Yeah, and we'll get to Andrew Volante's comment about Randy Gregory. That is in the cards. We'll get to that in a moment. But Cedric Wilson as well, mind you, there's questions over that he may hit free agency purely on the basis that he's done well. He's done well for himself this year. Started obviously very slow for the Cowboys. There was the injury. I'm trying to remember. Was it an ankle injury he had the first year and they had to bench him? Something. It was a leg injury anyway.
Right. First season, half the team had like sinking ankle stuff.
Yeah. So obviously, but this year he's really paid off. Gadget player as well.
Right.
Perfect passer rating as well. We'll throw that in there. Does it all. But do you think Cedric Wilson is a guy that they're going to try and pursue, or do you feel purely because of the cap situation? Because it seems to be the Cowboys at the moment, which I find quite odd, especially from the Cowboys front office, is that they seem to be worrying more about the future than the now.
Yep.
So do you feel that this is a year where they are going to not bother pursuing to keep Cedric Wilson's talents here?
No, I think he is gone. I don't think with the salary cap, I mean, he'd probably be like $7 million. And I don't think the Cowboys are going to be willing to spend that amount of money. And I think he'd be able to hit a lot in free agency. Just the production that he had this season. He was one of Dak Prescott's go-to targets, but I think he's gone, and the same with Malik Turner.
Yeah, and we've got this question as well that we'll hit, because we was talking about linebacker. I know we're jumping about, yeah, but the Yukies are throwing in the questions hard and fast on Twitter. Is the Bobby Wagner narrative that's come back out again? What's your guys' take? And I'll be right back. 1 second. I've got to turn my heating down.
Brianna, you want to go first?
Yes. So we can all dream, right? But I think when you can't even pay Cedric Wilson, when you weren't able to pay your punter, there's no way you're going to be able to pay a future Hall of Fame linebacker. And I think what is intriguing and what gives everyone pause is his ties to Dan Quinn. And sure, he might be willing to take less to reunite with Dan Quinn, but I think it's highly unlikely that he would come to the Cowboys. Sure, we would love to see it. I mean, that combination with Micah Parsons would be one of the best tandems that the NFL has probably ever seen. But I don't think there's any way that you'd be able to spend that amount of money unless he was willing to take a ridiculous low salary to be able to play for Quinn.
Yeah, just to kind of, for me, it's the fan of me would absolutely love that combination.
Oh, yeah.
But thinking about the business side of things, it's just not possible.
You can't even pay your own guys right now.
Yeah,
you're not going to be able to pay an 8-time Pro Bowl veteran. Right. It's not happening.
And this is what I sometimes love and hate about online social media. Sometimes some people can say, "Oh, we should get him up. We can't afford them."
Yeah.
So
it's this year's Earl Thomas or Jamal Adams situation.
Oh God, Earl Thomas, yeah.
You know.
And I mean,
suction.
You've also got talks that they're looking at Anthony Hitchens as well, bringing him back. You know, the hero of the Wembley game in 2014. You know, so bring him back across to London, but never mind. I mean, as Brianna says, it's going to be the Earl Thomas situation for the rest of this year at least. You know, why didn't we pick him up? Why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that? Unless Dan Quinn's got, you know, some way of saying, you know, come and play for us and, you know, we'll get you back to form, put you on a 1-year deal the same way that he's done with everybody else. You know, and then you're in the same situation next year, but hopefully by that point in time, you've got Jabril Cox has matured a little bit more. You've got Parsons has matured, and then whoever we pick up as well in the draft. Hopefully, you know, we'll be spending some capital on that as well. But
right. But I mean, like, sure. I mean, Dan Quinn is salivating just like all of us when he sees that he left. I mean, anytime that I asked Quinn about Micah Parsons, you know, his sensational rookie season, you know, have you ever seen or coached a player that has, you know, his closing speed, the instincts, and Bobby Wagner always came into the conversation. It wasn't like well, you know, no, I really never have. Like Bobby Wagner was always, you know, that is the best in his mind player that he's ever coached. I mean, loves the guy. And so, of course, he would want him to come here with Micah Parsons, but just with the cap, I don't think that's possible. And like, you know, Mike, you mentioned the Cowboys are not they look to the future. This isn't a let's win now, which it should be. But the Cowboys aren't the team that's going to make those splash plays in free agency like the Bucs or the Rams. They're not going to do that. This is a team that always does the bargain deals. They go to the Dollar Tree. They get the 1-2 year deals. I mean, that's what this team does. And so I think that's what they're going to continue to do, no matter how badly you want to see Bobby Wagner in a Cowboys uniform.
Yeah.
And second level with Micah Parsons.
And I think as well, a lot of the contract issues that the Cowboys are having, certainly, you know, as it stands now, a lot of that can be attributed to them taking so much time to make choices. Like if they pull the
Right.
trigger early on Dak, cheaper contract.
Exactly.
Pull the trigger earlier on Tank,
yeah.
cheaper contract. Cooper,
100%.
same situation. Randy Gregory, we was all saying in the offseason, sign him now because he's going to be cheaper now than he will be this year.
Yep.
And now here we are again, and all these things are now piled up, and they're going, we're going to have to cut players. And it baffles me why they take so long to make these choices. And then, like you say...
Yeah, Zeke with the holdout, too. Yes, had you pulled the trigger, you would have saved yourself a lot of hurt down the road, and you're experiencing it now.
Yeah, honestly. And here we are, from them dragging their feet again.
Yeah, me and RJ and Tom spoke about this on the Roundtable show, and it was just a constant barrage. Just like, why are we so delayed and doing so slow? Like, if not slow, why are we actually realizing what's in front of us and not paying them now, and not be kicked in the backside when it really matters? It's like it's frustrating as hell. It just seems like I don't know, man. It's
there it is. Yeah,
all doing
there it is. That's the noise I think most Cowboy fans make. They go, well, "What do you think about the contrast?" They just all you get is exhale noises, and it's always the same.
No, literally, if there's one way to describe how I feel right now, it's that meme of the dog inside of the burning building drinking a cup of coffee saying, it's fine, it's all fine, but it's actually not. It's like everything round about you is all burning.
Yeah, or like the one I always use or like quote is like, I don't know if you like have seen Friends, but the one where Ross, like that famous like, I'm fine. I don't know why. Really
fine.
Like that's me. Yeah, with all this news coming, it's like, oh god, I'm fine. We're all fine.
Yeah, sounds like we're all heavy meme users, so this is going good. I like this.
I think one of the reasons why the Cowboys are so slow to sign contracts is that they're trying to make use of these guys being hungry. You know, these guys are looking out. They're trying to pad their stats, trying to get, do whatever it takes to get the team up there, and hoping that you can ride that to playoff success before you then sign them or release them or whatever and let them go off and make their hundreds of millions of dollars elsewhere. And those that we have ended up signing, invariably injuries, what have you, taken or changes scheme in a lot of situations. That we're talking about moving on from Lyle Collins. I think Lyle, I've been critical this year so far that Philbin I think we should have got rid of. I don't rate him as an offensive line coach. And I think we're seeing a drop off across the board. Zach Martin, the only one that's improved is Terence Steele, and Terence Steele's been working with Duke Manyweather over in the Baylor Scott and White building. What they do during the off season is what actually improves their techniques, etc. What they're getting coached by the team is more the scheme and how it fits with what the receivers do and what you're meant to do on this play. There's no individual talent boosting coaching within the team setup.
Well, you mentioned Terence Steele. I mean, this was a guy that last offseason, he struggled in 2020 mightily. So during the offseason, he was in the weight room every day. He was getting stronger, working on his strength, and you saw the dividends of that this past season. And this is a guy that they all love. And I think that's one of the reasons you're going to see the moving on from Lyle Collins, because they want to have that spot for Terence Steele at right tackle. And as much as I think I would love to see or love to have facilitate the configuration of having Lyle Collins move to left guard, which is where he started his career. And he even told media, like, the left side is where I'm most comfortable. But I mean, the Cowboys didn't like his bend at tackle, so they certainly weren't going to like it at guard. But I mean, both Tyron Smith, Lyle Collins, they're not the player they once were. And, I mean, the Cowboys offensive line that was once deemed the best in the NFL, like, those days are gone. Those glory days are gone. And even Zach Martin said, we were smashed in the mouth over and over. And that's a big part of why I think this season ended the way it was. I think Dak's quarterback draw with 14 seconds left that made everybody scratch their heads, and you were wondering why the heck are we doing this? But I think a lot of the reason they did that was because of blocking. They weren't confident in the team's ability to block. And okay, if Dak throws a shot downfield, well, we can't block anybody. And we're getting beat at the point of attack over and over. So he could potentially take a sack, any number of things that would have ended that game in the same way. So it is what it is, but they've got to find a way to reboost and bolster that unit during the offseason.
Yeah. And there is news as well, which we'll get into, which coincides with all of this. And it's actually coming in through as we speak, is that the Cowboys are looking to trade Lyle Collins.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's literally just as we was talking. It's been going on throughout the day, and it's literally just come up now that the Cowboys are pursuing a trade. It doesn't say with who.
Certainly is not a surprising thing.
No, not really. I wonder what we can get. I wonder what we get because he was an undrafted free agent.
No.
Anything's a bonus, to be honest, right now.
Well, maybe the Commanders will give us half of their draft picks after trading to get Wentz. So
yeah. Did anyone see Trayvon Diggs' response to that?
The lone smiley face made my day.
You just see that, and you were just like, "Yeah, we know."
He's ready.
But obviously, in other talks, because the legal tampering period is coming on Monday. I always like that terminology. It never makes sense to me. Like, what does that even mean? But okay, legal tampering period starts on Monday, the 14th. There are talks that Randy Gregory is in talks with the Cowboys, but speaking with people, and obviously you yourself would know this as well, asked the question about that, and it sounds like they are going to let Randy Gregory test free agency, which makes sense for Randy as well at this stage, because he's like, a few days, 4 days away from finding out what his worth is. But do you think, because they've given Schultz the franchise tag, and as we say, with the cap constraints the Cowboys are under, does Randy Gregory come back, or do you think he's going to test free agency and go, I'll take that deal?
I think that the Cowboys' priority needs to be in securing him. If you're not going to have DeMarcus Lawrence, then you need to have Randy Gregory. And I mean, sure, this was a guy that's had a lot of issues in the past. I mean, we all know the substance abuse, the myriad of suspensions. But I mean, I think the Cowboys' longstanding loyalty and support of Gregory, I'm hoping will pay off and materialize in a deal. And I mean, he had the best season he's had in 2021 throughout the entirety of his career. Went through the first off-season program he's had for the season. But I think you've got to find a way to get him back. Like with all the free agencies they have as safety as well, get Jaron Kearse back. But I mean, I think that he needs to be the priority in getting him back on this team, especially if you're not going to have DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah, because I mean, now you're talking Marcus Goldston one side, and you're gonna have to put in, unfortunately, Micah Parsons on the other side. Because I'm totally with you. I want Micah Parsons to be free roaming. I want him to be in a various. He's Sam, he's Mike, he's defensive end. At one point, he's in the 2-point, then he's in the 3-point stance. Completely confusing offense.
Yeah.
See, I don't think that will be the case, Mike. I think we'll end up getting someone in the free agency just to fill up that void and keep Parsons in the linebacker. But if anything, it will definitely get someone in the draft. But But I totally agree with it. We can't afford to lose both of them.
Yeah.
One of them needs to stay, and that's it.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to, like we were saying earlier, and like Brianna was saying, that it's this trying to put sticky plasters on everything in the free agency and just straight from the bottom of the barrel and trying to get
Mike, that's exactly what it feels like. We're literally trying to put band-aids on the team right now. And it's literally just watching it just slowly fall apart.
Yeah. Like the old cartoons, like the Tom and Jerry cartoons, when they got holes in the boat and they put the finger in and then another freezer. You're just like running out of fingers.
Yeah, but I heard it the other day, but it was like trying to put a Band-Aid on a shark bite.
Yeah.
That's I feel like the average.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I like that. I
like that one. I'm taking a note of that.
Yeah, I'm writing down shark bite meme.
Yeah. There's always enough of those to go around.
God, next time I think of it, next time I watch Sharknado, I'll be thinking about just a lot of band-aids.
Sharknado. That's like one of the worst films ever made.
It is terrible, but it's amazing at the same time.
He's like, I don't know if I share that.
Yeah.
For all the good reasons.
Yeah, we'll get to the mailbag at the end because we've got a couple of questions. They're coming in. The old Yukis are firing in questions on Twitter that I've just given up now. So sorry, guys, on Twitter. You're just flying them in. But the one that has come in that I will ask anyway because it's the last question on there and I'm not scrolling through all of them. In terms of tight end, do you guys think that puts them out of the market in the draft now because they tagged Schultz? Or do you think, if anything, this means that they need to get a tight end in the draft, even more so?
Definitely.
Yeah, I would say they're still going to draft somebody. I mean, it probably won't be as high as it potentially would have if Schultz wasn't here anymore. I mean, you didn't have the Blake Jarwin injury, but no, I still think they for sure need to draft somebody in the later rounds.
Come on, Wadamaya.
Woo! Not happening.
No, I know.
No, you need some more. You need some more depth for sure, and a better, a good blocking tight end in there.
Yeah, and if you don't get a long-term deal done with Schultz before the draft, then potentially you're looking at being in the same situation next year and having them on where it'd be easier if you've got somebody that you pick up in the draft, you can develop them for a year and then they're maybe ready to assume more of a starting role next year.
Yeah. Because one of the questions that I'm going to ask you then is coming up is what do you think? What does Brianna think, or what position? We'll start there on that one. Do you think the Cowboys are going to draft in the first round?
I don't know if it's what they actually will do, but I think they should draft an offensive lineman. I mean, we've had, there's several names that have been synonymous with the Cowboys with Tyler Linderbaum, Kenyon Green, Evan Neal, and I think any one of those would be great additions at 24. But I think the priority needs to be solidifying that line because, I mean, that's what dictates this offense. And if your offensive line isn't strong, then teams are going to wreak havoc on you. And we saw that over and over throughout the 2021 season. So that's what I want to see happen, especially in an inferior position. Well,
the next one that's come in is ask you, what is Brian Broder saying he's going to take?
I honestly do not know what Brian is saying.
He does like to keep that close to his chest. He likes to keep it close to his chest till about 2 weeks before the draft, and then he starts hammering the narrative.
He's got his guys ready. He's got his board figured out. But I will certainly ask him that though and figure out who he wants for sure.
Yeah. Go on, Paul.
I was going to say, I just brought DJ Dog's comment there. Zion Johnson would be a great acquisition at number 24, I think. But
I think after the combine, he's gone up the board. And
but
Kenyon Green's probably going to be more in our reach.
I would not touch Kenyon Green. I'm being perfectly honest with you. I wouldn't touch him. If there's a guy, and I'm raving about the guy, is Cole Strange from Chattanooga. I think we can get him maybe in the third or fourth round. I like the look of him. That guy can really punch a hole through a wall.
So that's what we need. And I mean, especially when you have a guy like Tyler Biotish, and I mean, this coaching staff is not set on him. You can see that. I mean, that's why during the offseason, you had Connor Williams, you had Connor McGovern taking first team reps at center because they know that he's not the answer. And I think when you have solid pieces around him, he's better. But the inconsistency at left guard with Connor Williams and Connor McGovern hurt him. I mean, you're fine, obviously, at right guard with Zach Martin. I mean, one of the best in the biz, flawless technique. But when you have the inconsistency on the other side, that pours over into Tyler Biotish because that guy's not going to be able to take up the slack like a Zach Martin is. So getting a guy in there is not only going to help Tyler Biotish, but it's going to help boost that entire line as a whole.
So, I mean, what about for you guys then in day two? And I'll ask all three of you. Is defense, you're talking about offensive line. Is defensive line An option going into day 2. I know we've got an Oklahoma Sooner in Neville Gallimore as our 3 tech going
My
on there.
boy. That's my boy.
Odigizua as well. I think they will bring Carlos Watkins back by the sounds of it. But we'll wait and see. But do you think that's an option going into day 2?
Day 2, so that's second and third round. Maybe, but I think linebacker might be the more higher priority.
I do like the options at linebacker in day 2.
Yeah, there's really good. Like you've got Brian Osamoa, Chad Muma. Man, there's a really good list of linebackers you could probably get a good steal at that second round.
Yeah, because here's one of the questions then from the mailbag that ties into that. Stephen Nichols asked this question is, the 49ers are looking to move on from their defensive tackle, DJ Jones. Do you think that's somebody the Cowboys should pursue? Or do you think that's beyond our reach based on cap constraints?
Cap.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cap. Well, and I just kind of get the impression too that like as much as a lot of people value defensive tackle, I don't feel like the front office and the coaching staff sees it in the same way. I mean, this is a team that you play a lot of nickel and dime. They're confident in Neville Gallimore. They're confident in Odigizua. They believe that Chauncey Golston can play on the interior. So, I mean, I don't think that's as high a priority, the interior, as, say, like an edge is. And a lot of that's going to weigh on, obviously, what ends up happening with Randy Gregory if they bring back Dorrance Armstrong, which, again, I would like to see him come back. He had the most consistent season of his career with Quinn as well, just being one of those rotational pieces.
It's funny that
he had a great season.
So
I would like to see him get kind of a team-friendly deal and be back too.
It's funny that you mentioned Dorrance Armstrong because we were one of his biggest critics, and it's like he's always had those amazing training camps looking like standout and never really put the production into the regular season.
Yeah.
But last season, just there, that was his best season.
Oh,
and in some games when he was starting, he looked absolutely fantastic. It's like, okay, that's what we've been wanting from this guy. So bring him back.
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
Yeah,
he's finally, lived up to the billing that Jerry Jones has posted for him. I mean, Jerry's almost had him as his long lost child.
Yeah.
Sorry, we better not talk about that. But
oh no!
Oh, that pun.
Sorry, we said we weren't going to talk about that tonight, but
that's okay. It slipped in. That's all right. Paul's gone.
Oh my God, that was hilarious.
Talking of memes, you're just about to become a meme, Lorne.
Oh my God, yeah, he's seriously gone.
He's back in the room.
Sorry, I had to leave every sentence just to kind of laugh it out there.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to try and bring it back. So here's another one for the mailbag. I'm just trying to save things here. Safety being an issue for the Cowboys. The next question was, do you think they'll pursue Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger? Because there are reports he's leaving Kansas. Cap issues again, do we think? Just that turns back?
Honestly, I think it's way more likely that they get Jaron Curse, but then also retain either Hooker or Casey. I think it's more likely with Hooker, just given the upside, his age,
and the cost.
Former first-round pick. But I mean, once again, Cowboys don't make splash plays in free, so I'm always hesitant to be like, oh yeah, they're going to go after him. Like, no, this isn't a team that's saying all in, putting all the chips right now. That they're not a team that's going to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah,
some of the Yukis on Twitter are making comments to your comment, Lorne. Don't worry.
Yeah, mate.
Thank you, Yukis.
Mate, I don't know if it's actually any point asking us about players potentially joining the Cowboys right now.
I know.
It's now this is like, can we afford them? No.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And they never really make splashes in free agency, like Brianna's already pointed out. It is something, one of the things, and it seems to be what I always find weird is that the draft scouting the Cowboys do is phenomenal. It's one of the best in the leagues. But their pro scouting just seems to be mind-boggling. It's baffling. Although I will say the last season that we just had, their pro scouting
Quinn made a
department
huge
really,
difference, though.
Yeah,
He brought in his guys. He knew what he wanted, and I mean, he made a big impact in that. But I mean, we all saw the Don Terry Poe, the Everson Griffin, the Daryl Worley, the picks that didn't even make the roster.
What's happening there?
I'm sorry, I hit a
She mentioned Don Terry Poe.
Oh, Poe. Yeah, he doesn't like Poe.
You had to mention him. That is the biggest waste of space I've ever witnessed in this entire organization that ever played for the Cowboys. Honestly, Don Terry Poe made me lose my bloody hairline. I swear to God.
You have nightmares from this?
Honestly, I've never seen a lazy defensive type lineman in my life than Dan Terry Poe. All season I just slated him. God!
Just by the way, from a comment we've had from one of the Yukis on Twitter, sounds like Leeds lost in football, and Jamie saying we're cheering him up. Right, check that in there for you.
Oh
dear, Jamie.
So there we go. But I know, obviously, like you were saying, you were speaking to, you get to talk, doing what you do with the coaches and what have you. Do you think then, based on Dan Quinn's system and some of the linebackers and how diminished the linebacker core is right now, there are any linebackers that he's got his particular eye on that we need to keep an eye on based on that narrative?
Well, and I think too, some depends on, okay, do you re-sign Keanu Neal? Is he gonna stay? Because with Jabril Cox, like, they loved his upside as a coverage player, running backs, tight ends, but you really didn't get to see a lot of that. And I think had you been able to see what his incorporation looked like with Micah Parsons, his acclimation, you would feel a lot better going into next season. But there's so much uncertainty and questions that you have on him.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I wouldn't say that the Cowboys are going to go like first round getting a guy like Nakobe Dean, which probably won't even be there at 24 anyways.
Yeah.
I think more of like a second or third round, like you guys have mentioned. But I wouldn't say there's anybody specific that I have in mind. But I do think that the fact that Dan Quinn is back creates a lot of incentive for a guy to play in Dallas and to play for him. And I mean, he's a guy that maximizes talent.
Yeah.
And I mean, even a guy like Micah Parsons that came in, I mean, this is a guy that he opted out of the 2020 season. He transitioned from defensive end from high school, only had 1 year as a full-time linebacker in college. And immediately in training camp, Micah was lining up everywhere.
Yeah.
You had no idea where he was going to be, but he never looked lost. And it was that moment that Dan Quinn was like, okay, this is our best player. We're building our blitz packages and pass rush stunts at both linebacker and D end around this guy. He is going to be the foundation of our defense. And this team not only went from being serviceable from the disastrous Mike Nolan experiment that nobody really had a high became a defense that, was seventh in points allowed and led the league in takeaways. And that's just 1 year. So now we're only going to be able to see what Dan Quinn's going to be able to do in another season.
Yeah. And you never know. They might even, look at an Oklahoma player that we wrote about today, Nick Bonito, who's perfect.
Yes. Oh, love Nick. Yeah.
Yeah. Most pressures in the last 2 years. He's got like 65 pressures. That's like crazy. What the hell's going over there in the Big 12?
I know, and Big 12 doesn't normally play defense as well. So
yeah, exactly. Oklahoma didn't, although they have tried to make that work. I would say in the last couple of years, they're trying to switch that. But we can see that the hour is coming out because we did say we'd be with you for the hour, Brianna. So we're gonna start to wrap things up here. So obviously we'll try and get you back for during the draft period or when the draft is on. I'll send you some links because we're mates now. We're like all mates and everything.
Yeah. And one day when I come to London, hopefully when we guys play there, ride some double-decker buses, some fish and chips. You guys can show me the nice pub spots.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Drink
I'll
tequila.
No, Buckfast.
No, we're not going on that. No, thank you. No, we'll get on the tequila. But the nice tequila. You've still got your bottle of Dom Perignon, didn't you?
Who you talking? No, the Don Julio 1942.
Oh, yeah.
I've still got it.
There we go. We'll bring that with you.
Yeah, I've still got it.
Yeah, so we'll talk to you again. And obviously, as we always say to everyone, anything you ever need, we're always here to lend a hand, or if you want anything from us. But just so people know as well, just to remind them, where can they find you and follow you?
Yes, so I am on Twitter at Dix Brianna, on Instagram, Brianna M. Dix, and then on my YouTube channel, Brianna Dix, you can find my crosstalk videos with Brian Broaddus, and then all of my articles and links to videos are on d210.tv under the Cowboys tab.
There we go. We will make sure to try and link in and share when they pop up for you. But we'll leave you to it there. We'll let you crack on with the rest of your day. And hopefully we'll speak to you during the draft, and we'll wrap things up and do all our sponsorship, pay the bills, yeah. So thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much, guys, for having me. And it was a pleasure to meet you all officially through the wonderful internet.
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
For the use of technology. So yeah, I mean, we'll leave it there with you, and yeah, like I said, we're just going to wrap things up. Yeah, speak to you again soon. Bye. Yes, so the great Brianna there. That was a lot of fun. Some information coming at you, which was great. So we are back on Tuesday with the Prospect Project. That is, of course, unless we get any more news that comes out and hits us. No doubt it will, the way things are going.
Yeah. I couldn't believe she brought up that name. But no, I was forgiving. No, she didn't know. But anyway, guys, be sure to go and check out our fellow content creators, Hanging with the Boys, 105 The Fan, and also go check out like the SB Nation, Cowboys Fans Only, Big Game James is all there. Be sure to go and check everybody out. Man, all these guys do amazing stuff. And also, please go and check out Cowboys Experience for the ultimate meet and greet, tailgate and game day package experience, and much, much more. And I would like to say this for the first time, and you be sure to use the discount code UK Cowboys, because guys, what do you get if you use the code?
Some
free stuff.
That's
And
actually
chocolate
it's nice for me to say that for the first time.
Mate, I get fed up of listening to the sound of my own voice, so that was lovely. But that is it, guys. So make sure you have a good weekend. We'll be back with some more news. Me and Brian will be back Tuesday. One of these guys will be with us too to talk over some prospects. 6 guys we're going to pick at random. I can't remember, where are we? Ooh, it's pass rushers next week, so that'll be a good one. That should be interesting.
Let me hit the trailer, and that will be us for this evening. All right, guys, catch you later.
Have a good one, guys.
You can try to break me. I cut my teeth on people like you. It's gonna take longer to take me down. I'm a step ahead, watch me wear my crown. Don't need a night to cut the cake and count the dragons that I've slayed. You can give it all you got, 'cause love is running through my veins. Oh, this lion can't be tamed. There's fire in my